Hello and welcome to the first Issaquah School District PTSA Special Education webinar. My name is Betsy Grant. I am the chair of the Special Education Committee for the Issaquah PTSA Council. And with me today is Dana Bailey, who is the ISD Special Services Executive Director. Welcome, Dana.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me today.
We're so excited to start this webinar series. What our goal is to create just a series of short webinars about 15 to 20 minutes in length to answer 3 or 4 community questions specifically around ISD special services and some common questions on what families are hoping to know. If you have a question for future seminars, please send those questions to special-education@issaquahptsa.org, or you can join our Facebook group, which is Issaquah Special Education PTSA Committee. Alternatively, you can go to the special education page at issaquahptsa.org, which is the council website. So any one of those ways, you can send an email to me, and if you have questions for future webinars. So with that said, let's jump right in. Ready, Dana?
I am.
So it's been a crazy fall. I know all of the families have been dealing with a lot of new things. Everybody in the administration has been dealing with a lot of craziness and working really hard. There's been a lot of frustration for families with special education students because a lot of students were really struggling with the remote learning or were just simply not able to access it. The families were really excited in September when we learned that the students in the ECE and the LRC2 and the ACT programs were going to be returning, and now they have all returned in the last few weeks. Can you just kind of go through some of the process that the Special Services Department went through just to get ready for those students to return to school?
Sure. Thank you so much. We spent the summer working on a variety of plans for hybrid, but those plans really only worked if the entire school came back, so the infrastructure was in place to bring students back into the building. With the opening of just special programs, which you just mentioned, the ECE program, LRC2, kindergarten through 12th grade, and the ACT program, we needed to rebuild this plan so that the infrastructure worked with just those students. We spent quite a lot of time discussing and building a safety plan that included additional PPE and training for staff so that we could say with confidence that we were meeting our goal, which is the same goal I've stated before, which is to deliver FAPE safely. And we were attending to the health and wellness of our students, their families, and our staff. The most challenging piece of getting ready to launch this hybrid plan for special programs was building the full remote plan for families, which might surprise you that the harder part of building this in-person delivery service plan was building the plan for those students and families who decided to remain in full remote. We needed to secure the full remote teacher and the paraprofessional staff, and we needed parents and students to be comfortable in their decision. We had many families change their decision, and I know it was hard. It was a hard decision, hard to know what to do, how to weigh the factors, and it was just a big challenge. I think it was a huge hard decision for families. And so in September, when I asked the parents of students served in special education, if some in-person services were to be made available, would you have your student participate? The early September data was about 10% of the families would have elected to stay in full remote. However, when the final decision was needed, we are sitting at about 35% of families electing to stay full remote. So therefore, we had to build a new plan. This triggered the need to secure a second full remote teacher at high school, at elementary school, and in the preschool program. We still have a few issues to and things to, problems to work out, but we're working on it, and we hope to have those last pieces settled very soon.
Great. That's a lot of help. I think a lot of families just not knowing what goes on behind the scenes and all of the ins and outs of things. It's great to know a little bit about what was happening and all of the pieces that needed to be put in place. Thank you. For the group of students that have returned in the last couple of weeks, it's a limited amount of time that they have in person. So what is the priority for the time? How the time is going to be used? What's the priority for that time that they are in person? And is there anything that families can do to make that time more successful?
So I was really intrigued by this question, and my answer is a little bit in a circle. So the priority for the programs is driven by the priorities of the individual students who are attending in person. And in our thinking and discussions about this, we held in tension the need for stability, not changing student schedules, especially at the secondary level, and at the same time capitalizing on the in-person time for maximum support. Teams are currently working to fine-tune student schedules and are looking at access as the most compelling feature. There is a benefit to having the student continue to access general education classes remotely while in person, because at that point, the special education staff is at the ready to support the remote learning skills that we see are still emerging in many of our learners, and to make sure that students are getting their IEP accommodations and modifications while they're in their general education class. We also thought that devoting this time and building and strengthening the students' skills in accessing their remote learning had the benefit of preparing students if we go back into full remote, either for a short-term school closure for an individual or specific class, or if we return to full remote learning district-wide. For sure, building teams wanted to use the in-person time to build relationships and to attend to the emotional health and wellness of our students. For every single team that is in person, they either have new students in their class or a new teacher, and getting to know each other is paramount. Additionally, teams are using the in-person time to collect data on IEP goals and to use this data to craft lessons that address IEP goal areas. Specially designed instruction is not individualized without this data. We need to know, we meaning the teachers and the buildings and the parents, need to know the impact on the learning of last spring in order to successfully go forward with students. And of course, they are capitalizing on the in-person time to deliver specially designed instruction and therapeutic services such as speech, occupational, and physical therapy. And I am certain that the students are coming home tired. They are having a busy and full day in their hybrid model.
That is a lot to do in a 2.5 hour period, 4 days a week. That is a lot to shove in. But from what I've seen from my child, who I didn't mention, if anybody, so my connection with special education, when I was introducing myself, I have a son in the LRC2 program at the Issaquah Middle School. And so from what I've seen, he does come back tired. And I think the teachers and the paras are working extremely hard at getting the most out of every single minute of those days. So your staff is doing a wonderful job. So LRC1 students were not included in that first group of students to return to in-person services. And some of them, just talking to parents in the community and with LRC1 students, some of them are doing really well with remote learning. And it's almost, some people are being very successful, and but then there are other kids who are having great difficulty, almost as much difficulty as the LRC1 students at that level were having. So, and many families feel like their children are not making meaningful progress towards their IEP goals. So my question is, does the school district have a plan, or are you developing a plan to allow the LRC1 students to access in-person services before their grade level peers in the general education? And now, especially with the trends of cases spiking, that looks even further away that general education might be able to resume. So the LRC1 students, or excuse me, families are really, who think they need in-person services are probably more anxious than ever. So what is the ISD plan for that?
Thanks for asking. In this area, special services is responsive to the district mission, and we're building our plan to be ready to deliver special education services when other large groups of students begin or return to a hybrid system. That said, we all know that some students who have known and documented learning struggles are having a great difficulty in this remote learning model. For students who are served in LRC 1, parents and teams can convene an IEP meeting to discuss the data from this year and last year and use the decision tree to see if in-person services are needed. At this point, these services would be only for the students' IEP goal areas, not their general education classes, because their general education teachers are not in person. And that's all managed through the IEP process. We have had some families and students go through this process already, and we are beginning to deliver these appointment services. So if a parent is feeling that, and our child is feeling that they're really struggling in the remote model, the first and best choice is to request to convene an IEP meeting or reach out to the IEP case manager and see if we can get a meeting on the books so we can begin to discuss the data. What would be helpful is if the parents had data to share. So we've been in school 6 or 7 weeks. They will have lots of anecdotal data to share. So what would be helpful is if parents took a moment to write down, like, this is what I see, this is what I observe, this is what my student does or does not do. Engagement is a really important question.
That's great. So if a child is, only able to sit and pay attention for 10 minutes at a time, every day of the week, that would be an example of information that a parent would be able to bring to that meeting and saying, he or she is not able to engage for more than X amount of time or something similar to that.
Exactly.
So if parents or guardians don't feel that their child is progressing on their IEP goals with their current learning plan, whether it's in person, in any of the scenarios that we have going on right now, what are the options that they have to modify their child's plan during this time?
So again, parents, guardians, kids should be asking for an IEP meeting to discuss and share these concerns. We have been the Issaquah School District Special Services team has been given very clear guidance from OSPI, our governing body, that we should not be writing COVID IEPs. Last spring in the crisis education time, we utilized the continuous learning plan where parents could agree to set aside a goal area to make it through last spring's crisis learning. Simply put, this is no longer allowed, and we are to be addressing all of the goal areas in every child's IEP. That said, it's not a perfect learning environment for anybody, and parents need to be able to share with the school team what's happening at home, because the school team isn't at home and doesn't know what's happening. So it's the same answer. If I sound a bit like a broken record, it's to reach out to the IEP case manager and request a meeting to share your concerns. And we want the kids to be successful. It's not going to do any good for anybody if the kids just flounder for months more. So it's a good time to reach out and see if we can get a discussion going.
That's great. Thanks very much. So those are all the questions that we have to start off our series today. I hope everybody found it helpful and meaningful. Again, if you want to suggest questions for future webinars, please send them to special-education@issaquah.org. That will come straight to me. Also, I invite you to join our Facebook group. It's Issaquah Special Education PTSA Committee. It's a growing community where we seek to find ways to support and learn from each other. And we hope that it continues to grow. And again, you can also go to the IssaquahPTSA.org website, to the special education page, where you can also find a link to that email. So thank you again, Dana, for joining me. I look forward to doing more of these in the future and hopefully getting great information out to the families in ISD.
Thanks. The special services team would like to offer a huge thank you to the parents and the teams in the buildings about their work in diligently getting all of last year's IEPs that were put on pause done by the deadline, which is in a week. So huge thank you from all of us to all of you about answering the call when it said, hey, that IEP meeting we didn't have, now we really have to do it. So thanks to everyone Pleasure being with you here today, Betsy. Hope to do it again in a few weeks.
Great. Thanks very much, Dana.